So let me switch our view around. And if that seal comes back, you better believe that I'm going to the camera back on over. And tell you now that if we see wildlife, things will stop, and we're going to take a look at what's going on around us. So I apologize in advance if I interrupt you or interrupt myself for wildlife sightings. So anyways, let me reintroduce myself. I am Ranger Daniel, and I am in the California State Park. As you can tell by this great patch that I get to wear. And the name of the park that we're in is called Point Lobos. It's on the California coast, as you can see, and the harbor seals live here. And today we're going to take a look at the ecosystem that the harbor seal depends upon. And that's the kelp. So and just get you acquainted with where we are. Now, along the way, I'm going to point some things out. I'm going to ask some questions. And if you want to answer one of these questions, show me what you would do. You got it. You would raise your hand. Your teacher will call on you to share your answer and your idea. Towards the end of our time together, you're going to get a chance to ask some questions as well. So hold on to those questions if you have them. If they pop into your brain, hold on to them because you'll get a chance to ask those. So how does that sound to you, everyone?
Good.
Sounds great.
All right, excellent. So what I'm doing now is kind of what it looks like right here at Point Lobos on the Pacific coast, right here in California. We're in a place called Whalers Cove. It's kind of this horseshoe-shaped body of water that we're in, and we're looking outside of it. We're looking north. And across the way is some more land. That's about 4 miles by kayak across. And this is where kind of the wind and the waves are starting to form. We are in between storms right now. So very lucky to get out here, out on Whalers Cove. And we've got a boat going out. That's a group of scuba divers going out just to check things out. We're going to find out what we do to protect this place. And one of it is that there's no fishing happening here. Going out. We'll talk a little bit more about that. And now we're going to kind of circle right to land, our right-hand side, back into the cove. And we're going to remain here in the cove for a lot of reasons. There's a lot of stuff happening here. To the open ocean. And check this out, students. This is the forest beneath us. We're going to start to float on over.
Suffering a little bit, guys. Live outside, it might happen. We'll do the best we can to follow along.
So this, what do you call this? Raise your hand. What do you call this right here?
Tyler, tell them what you call that, please.
Kelp.
All right, kelp. Excellent. You are correct, my friend. How many of you were thinking, well, that kind of looks like seaweed? That's what I would call it. Raise your hand if that's what you were kind of thinking. Yeah, well, you're right, too. Kelp is a type of seaweed. And this is called giant kelp. And it's called giant kelp for a reason. Oh, this is something quite neat to see right here. This is baby kelp right here for your very eyes. This is how it starts to form its long leaf. It starts as one blade, and then it starts to break apart. I mean, kind of see that right there. And then it starts to grow much bigger leaf blades. In fact, let me put our camera back down, and let's take a look at one of these leaf blades up close. Gonna grab one right here. So, all right, gonna grab some right out of the ocean here. This is giant kelp before your very eyes. Let's bring the leaf blade right on up to the camera so you can really check it out. Yeah. All right. I want to hear some descriptive words right now. Raise your hand if you want to share with me one word that describes what you're seeing.
Okay, go up and describe one word that you can describes what you're seeing.
I think it's kind of sharp and pointy.
All right, it definitely has got some pointy edges. Good observation. What happened?
Young man in the red shirt.
They're
Say nice and loud. Just say nice and loud.
lumpy and
Louder.
lumpy and bumps on the neck.
All right, so bumpy. Yeah, it's got these bumps in here. Yeah, let's hear from one more student.
Hi.
Texture.
Texture, lot of texture. Yeah, the bumps, it's got the points right here. I wish I could transport the sense of touch right now because it's really kind of smooth and slimy as well. And so it's pokey, it's bumpy, and kind of smoothish, slimy. And you notice that I was calling this a leaf. And that's because that's what it is. It's very similar to leaves on trees and plants on land, like those trees you see behind us there. Now, that's one thing I just want to check in with you right now real quick, is what does a leaf do for a plant? What's its role? Who can tell me?
What does a leaf actually do for a plant, right?
It makes food for it.
One more time.
It makes food for it.
It makes food for it. Absolutely right. And boys and girls, I'm going to take a pause right here because, it just went under. Maybe it'll come right back on up. But there was another harbor seal taking a look, maybe the same one. But you're right, my friend. Leaves. Oh, there it is.
Besides.
There. Oh, my goodness. Wow.
Oh, look at a baby.
Wow. Please raise your hand if you saw that. I sure hope you did. Oh, excellent. Wow. Now, while seeing a harbor seal is an often occurrence here, it rarely comes that close to our kayak. Usually they kind of keep a distance, but they are curious. Awesome. So we do know that the leaf makes food for plants on land, and that's what happens in the giant kelp as well, is that these leaves make the plant for the giant, or make the food for the giant kelp. What's the name of that process of plants making their own food?
What do we call that process, Jude?
Photosynthesis.
You got it. Photosynthesis. I like that you didn't even hesitate. That's exactly what's going on with plants on land, as well as these algae that are growing in the ocean. Oh, we've got another wildlife. I've got an easy question that I know all of you are going to know the answer to. What's that adaptation that an animal has when it blends in with its environment?
Call it out. 1, 2, 3.
Camouflage.
You got it. All right. Sharp eyes are going to be needed. Hopefully this animal will be... Oh, it just took a jump for it. Let's see if I can grab it, though. All right. This might make it a little easier. So I'm going to bring this on up to the camera and to kind of keep this little critter from moving too... Well, there we go. When you see this critter, raise your hand.
See it.
Oh, that's cool.
Is that?
Yeah.
It's an insect.
All kinds of different find in kelp forest, from harbor seals to this little kelp bug here. Now, this little kelp bug is an herbivore in the kelp forest. So putting 2 and 2 together, what do you think it eats in the kelp forest if it's an herbivore?
What does it probably eat, Lincoln? What do you think?
Like this.
So what kind of plant do you think it probably eats?
Kelp.
Absolutely. We should call it a kelpivore, really, because that's what it's eating. It's eating the kelp. And right there, I bet you those are bite marks from it right there.
Oh, yeah.
Evidence. So let's just talk very briefly about this very cool bug we've got here. There's a land relative that it has that everybody in the room knows about. Now, this has got the hard shell here, but its land relative has a hard shell that's kind of grayish. You would find this animal maybe in your garage or out in a garden or on the playground under rocks. If you were to touch it, it might curl up into a little ball.
What do you think it is, buddy?
The roly-poly, exactly right. Right. The roly is what we call an isopod, which is a classification of insects. So is this. So that's most relative. It's kelp forest relative, the roly-poly. Oh, and it took a jump for it. Now let's take a look right here. It's got a hard shell, so I know it's okay. I'm going to bring it right on up to the camera before we say goodbye. It's a kelp eater, but it also is a link in the food web here because fish are going to eat. Lots of fish will chomp on these. So, all right, everyone, a silent goodbye to the kelp roly-poly. It's going back home.
Adios.
There we go. So, wow, wildlife all around us. In fact, there's another kind of classification of animals that's right in front of us. And I want to show you. Now, it's off on the cliff side. I'm going to get a little bit closer, but I don't want to disturb it. But it's when you see that white figure or that white animal, raise your hand. It's kind of directly in front of us. It might look a little small, but that's a bird that will nest around here. It's called an egret, which you would have in Indianapolis and in your creeks and lakes. And so what would a bird do here with the kelp forest? What's the connection with birds in the kelp forest?
Ideas? What do you think the connection might be?
Build nests.
All right, excellent. Yes, they do use kelp in their nests. That's really good. Yeah. What else?
What else? Any other ideas?
Oh,
Caroline, you have any?
maybe they use some as food.
Do they eat it, maybe?
They don't eat the kelp itself, really, but they'll eat the animals that are in the kelp. So what kind of animals do you think might be in the kelp forest that we haven't actually seen yet, but there's probably a lot of them here? What types?
Laney, what do you think?
Fish.
Maybe fish?
You got it, fish. That's exactly right. That's what's bringing them here is their, is the fish here in the kelp forest. All right, let's paddle right on over this way. The swell is getting a little bit big. That means we're going up and down. That means some waves are coming into the cove. So we're going to kind of move ourselves right on over here. So hold on, everyone. Going to just take us for a quick journey over this way. So keep your eyes open for everything. So we've already see here that a lot of different types of animals depend upon the kelp forest. And you mentioned earlier when those scuba divers were going out that they were going because Point Lobos, not only is it a California state park, but it's also a marine protected area, what we call an MPA for short. And really what that means is that we protect both the land as well as the marine areas around us, the ocean. And to put that in a perspective of what we protect here at Point Lobos, the land part of Point Lobos is 550 acres large, but the ocean part of our park is actually 9,000 acres large. And, acres is kind of hard to put our minds around, but to put that in a different perspective, Point Lobos is about 13,000 football fields big. So with most of the field being in the ocean and protecting this kelp forest. All right. So now, let's just go ahead and switch our perspective over here. Sharp eyes are going to notice over in the distance, there's some splashing happening. We'll kind of keep our kayak right here to observe what's happening.
I think I see it.
I see nothing.
It kind of settled down for a moment, but we'll kind of keep our kayak over here, and if the splashing happens again, we'll be the first to see it for sure. But this is a great view right here. Now, the really great thing is that since this is a marine protected area, that means it's a safe zone for all the animals that swim through our protected boundaries. And to give you a perspective of the diversity of animals, let me just show you real quick. Here's an illustration of some of the animals you could discover beneath us. About 1,000 different animal species rely on the kelp forest for some part of their life. Some live here, some migrate through, some come here to eat. It just depends. There's the harbor seal. That's what we've been seeing. And then there's another marine that's super important to our kelp forest ecosystem. And I'm going to actually show you a different picture of it right here. They tend to keep farther away than the harbor seals, but that's this animal right here. The sea otter. Now, there are some kind of nearby, but we can't get too close to them because they scare easy. And right now they're resting. So otters are really easy to see when you're up on with some binoculars. But when you're in the actual kelp forest, we give them their space because it's hard living in the ocean. And we want to make sure that they have everything that they need here. Now, sharp eyes will already notice that it's wrapped up in giant kelp.
Oh, look at that.
Now, it does that to not float away. It also wraps its babies up in giant kelp while mama goes and looks for food. How does this giant kelp not float away? Who knows? Who has an idea of how the giant kelp doesn't float away? Oh, boys and girls, there is a harbor seal right at us. Let's see. It just swam beneath us, but go ahead and answer the question, and we'll just keep our camera this way.
Olivia.
Probably because if it's light, then it just floats on top of the water.
Okay. Oh my goodness.
Oh my gosh, look how close it is.
Look at that.
Wow. That's very rare for them to get so close. They are curious. That is so wonderful. I will keep my distance from it. I would never go and try and find it. But if the harbor seal tries to find us, that's another story.
I think
It's obviously very curious of what's happening up here.
So the question is, why does the mom wrap the baby in the kelp? Is that the question, Daniel?
Why does it not float away?
How does the kelp not float away?
How does it not float away? Someone who's not had a chance to answer something, Christian.
I'm pretty sure every plant is in the ground, so it's in the ground at the bottom of the ocean.
Yeah, because it's just really tall.
Yeah.
You are right track. Now, while giant kelp doesn't actually have roots in the ground, it has something that attaches very firmly to rocks. And I'm going to show you what it looks like. It's called the holdfast. It's what the kelp grows out of, and it looks like this.
Yeah.
Look at that. So it'll be attached to a rock. If my fist were a rock, it'd be attached like this. Like something that is as strong as super glue, if not stronger. And then the kelp will grow out of the top of it. Oh my goodness.
There it is.
There he is.
Yes. There's our friend the harbor seal.
Mr. Ostrander, I think
Oh my goodness.
Okay.
That's our mascot this morning. Very cool. So that's, to wrap this part up, that's how the kelp stays in place, and that's how the otter can, wrap itself or its babies up in it and not float away, because the kelp is actually anchored to the bottom of the ocean, which is really kind of cool.
Yeah, that's cool.
Wow. So much happening here this morning. I'm going to keep our camera up this way so we'll see some, wildlife if it comes up. But something's happening right now at Point Lobos that we don't get to see very often. And I'm going to take us right on over there as we go along. Now, I want to just talk a little bit about the idea behind our marine protected zone right here. Like I said, it's a safe zone for the animals that we don't fish here or take anything natural. Everything natural must remain here. And that's in the whole idea that all the animals, as well as the seaweeds, will build their populations so they can support themselves and other animals in food web. Now, let's say you're somebody who likes to go fishing, and you're in the area and you wanted to go out on the Pacific Ocean and go fishing. Well, that can still happen, but just not right here in the ocean around Point Lobos. It's, like I said, a safe zone for all the animals that cross into its boundaries. And it's not the only one along our coast. We have over 100 other marine protected areas up and down our coast that help protect these animals and give them a safe zone where they can't be caught. Now, what I'm doing right now is taking us to look at that very little waterfall that's falling onto the beach.
That's pretty.
I don't know if you can quite see it, but that is something that only happens after we've received a lot of rain. So it's a seasonal waterfall right there. And it's quite small, but we kind of like it.
Oh, I see it.
Yeah.
See it, do
I
you?
think I see it.
See it.
Yeah. I think I see it. That's a good response. Yeah, it's small. But something else that's super cool off in the distance here, I'm going to move our camera, our boat over, is our old whaler's cabin. Built in 1851. That's our museum now, but it was home to the Chinese settlers who came here in the 1850s and built that place. All right. So let's move us right on over here. Now, what I'd like to do is check in with you and see if there's any kind of questions that you might have for me. What are you wondering about?
So we got about 10 minutes. And hey, Daniel, before the 10 minutes is up, I would love to get a photo of the two classes with you. So maybe in about 8 minutes.
Absolutely.
And
Sounds good.
And one other thing that I just want to plant the seed in case they don't ask this question, which I'm hoping they do. But so I might have the last question too. So I might say it's 7
Okay.
minutes.
Sounds good.
But now we'll open it up. So even if you don't have a question, listen. Feel free to take notes. And I'm going to start with Diego. So Diego, why don't you come up, introduce yourself loud and clear, as you know what to do. And Daniel, if by chance we run out of time, would I be able to message you some of their questions? Should we run out of time?
Absolutely.
Wonderful.
Absolutely.
So we're going to try our best to get everybody's question.
Hi, my name is Diego, and do you know I'm studying for a project California, and I want to write some facts down. And do you know how the kelp forest looks like?
Like underneath.
Like, how is it doing? Is it healthy now, or is that your question? Like,
Yeah, like because I saw that there were resorts like that in California. There were a lot.
yeah, well, the kelp forest goes all up and down the California coast, as well as the whole coast of North America, from Baja California to Alaska. And here at Point Lobos, this has been a marine protected area since 1960, one of the oldest protected ocean areas in our nation. So right here, the kelp forest looks wonderful. I mean, we've even seen some great animals today. Let me just show you how beautiful it looks. It's thriving, and we're seeing all kinds of in here. So I was the Point Lobos kelp forest along this stretch of California is doing really well. It's very healthy and looks great.
That's probably because
I
it's
hope that answered your question. Yeah.
Daniel, is it so
Thank
healthy
you.
because you're keeping it as a wildlife reserve? Is that why it's so healthy?
Because we're keeping it as a wildlife preserve, exactly. What we have found in the past, the otters were hunted in the early 1800s. And so what had happened is when the otters were gone, the kelp was gone. In fact, can anybody come up with a reason why?
I think we know
When
this.
the otters weren't here, that the kelp...
Eli, say why the otters are so important to the kelp forest.
Sea urchins.
Absolutely right. They're food. They eat animals that eat the kelp. And if something's not eating the sea urchin, I've got part of an urchin shell right here to show you.
That's a cigarette. That's what it looks like.
Yeah.
It
So
is?
it's missing its spikes. When the urchin dies, its spikes fall off, but those bumps are where the spikes come from. And so this eats the kelp. The otter eats the urchin. If nothing's eating this, then they're going to eat all the kelp, and they'll eat themselves out of house and home, and that's what happened here. So there's a lot of connections here. So by protecting the whole ecosystem, we get a chance to see it be very healthy.
Thank you.
Awesome.
You're welcome. Thank you.
Who does not have that question? You go. Clear, ask your question. We'll try to get as many as we can.
Hi, my name is Kate Baldwin, and I think it's really nice that you're doing this for free. And how long have you been doing this?
Well, I have been here at Point Lobos for a few years now, about 3 years, but I've been working for California State Parks for about 20 years. So I've been doing stuff like this for a long time.
Thank you.
So
You're welcome.
yeah, so like we're not paying Daniel, but I'm sure the state parks are.
Yeah, it's a free service that we provide. Absolutely.
That really nice that the parks pay. I mean, that's fantastic. Actually.
Yeah.
Lainey, you can go ahead and ask your question. We're gonna try to get as many as we can. Okay.
I'm Lady, and I was wondering what your favorite animal is.
Boy, that's a good question. I would have to say, like today, it's the harbor seal. My goodness, how cool! How we got to see that harbor seal so many times. So today, it's the harbor seal. Tomorrow, it might be something different.
Christian, you go ahead, buddy. Thanks for being patient, everybody.
So I remember that sheet of like all the different animals. Like,
Yeah.
you ever seen one of those sharks? Yeah, have you ever seen
I have seen one of these sharks. I've seen this type of shark right here, the leopard shark.
Have
And
you
I've actually seen it right near where we're floating. They live kind of at the bottom of the kelp forest where there's openings, where it's kind of a sandy bottom, and they are looking for crabs and clams. That's what's on their menu. That's what they like to eat, and they're amazing. It looked like it was about 4 feet long or so, but it was really cool to see. But yeah, they're definitely here in the kelp forest. Now you think about great whites. In here, anything looking for food, and that harbor seal that we were seeing earlier, that's the meal of a great white.
Have you seen a blue shark? The other shark that was on there?
I have not seen the blue shark in here, but that doesn't mean it hasn't been in here. I just haven't seen it. Yeah. Good question.
You guys have been very patient.
My name is Lincoln, and I was wondering how tall the kelp is.
Awesome. Now, giant kelp, we call it that for a reason. So will you just give me an idea of how tall you think it can get?
Tell them the fact that you know.
Well, yeah, what I know right now is that it grows 2 feet every day, but I could not guess how tall it really is.
Okay, so like how tall does it go to? Well, giant kelp on average will grow to be about 100 feet tall. It can go a little bit taller than that or a little bit less than that. And the kind of neat perspective thing is all those trees you see in front of us, none of those are 100 feet tall. Yeah, those are all less than 100 feet. So the kelp can grow taller than the trees in the forest right there, which I find to be amazing.
That's pretty crazy. That's pretty. Write that down for real. Hey, real quick, just to make sure, before I call on another student. So you said like there's stuff that we can do to help. Did you say that?
There is stuff you can do to help. In fact, that we all can do to help. In fact, there's a number of things. Now, I mentioned that this is a marine protected area, and we don't fish here, and the water is clean and such. But that doesn't mean that things don't come in here that don't belong. And what I mean by that, students, is look at this.
Aww.
This is all trash, or mainly plastic things that I have gotten right here from Whalers Cove here at Point Lobos. This could have come in from our park here, or could have floated in from who knows where, but this all came from people. So really what we can do is take a look at our relationship with plastics and trash and what we do with those things and how we can minimize our use and maybe even phase one-time use plastic or plastics that we don't really need out of our lives. Sometimes plastic is very important and it depends on the use, but stuff like this, none of this is important for our lives, and it ends up in our oceans. So that's a big thing is, really looking at what we do about plastics individually and together as a group, as a society. That's super important.
Very cool, very cool. Hey, we have time for maybe one more question before we take our photo. But hey guys, have we been studying about plastics and with Mrs. Wager? And yeah, so all that stuff that we're learning about plastics, it carries over into a lot of places like the forest.
It really does.
Have you call the last name? Because it's too much pressure. He hasn't asked the question.
So hi, my name is Tyler, and like, how much people visit like a year?
Good question. Point Lobos is a very popular California state park, and we get close to about 750,000 people come here a year. So that's 750,000 people. We estimate come here each year. So it's a popular park. As you can see, the beauty is incredible. But the really neat thing right now is not many people get to see Point Lobos from the perspective that we're all seeing it from right now. They're mainly on land. So we got a special treat today.
Because it's protected, people can't swim or boat in the water, right?
They can boat here, but they can't make a wave. And we limit it to the amount of people who can be in the ocean a day. Scuba divers, only 15 groups of 2 can be here a day to minimize impact on the wildlife. If there is a boat involved, they have to get a permit, and they can only go less than 5 miles an hour through this area here. Now, swimming, that's another thing because the water's cold here. Kelp needs cold water to thrive. And this morning, I took temperature of the water. It's 53 degrees Fahrenheit. And it doesn't really get too much more warmer than that. So when you swim here, you're in a thick wetsuit.
Okay, I'm sure we got more questions, but it's almost time for lunch. Real quick, my class should know how to do this. Miss Woods' class, we're going to figure this out. We're going to gather in kind of like levels, like high to low, gather in front of that block Daniel's face. We're going to take a class photo of the 2 classes together. Daniel, is that okay? And I'll message it to you.
Absolutely, yes.
Please, Shayna.
Mr. I'll stand there. Mr. I'll stand there.
Hold on, I'm going to take a photo. Just gather
Mr.
it.
I'll stand there.
Take place like somebody like you sit on your pockets first, and then behind you on that row, then kneel down with your clothes.
All right.
Do not walk.
Okay, the best you can do. Once you turn, just don't block Daniel, okay?
Alright, some people over here, you could like squat a little so we can see
Okay, let's see. Get down just a little bit. Say, seal. Big smile. Let me get my flash on. Big smiles, guys. One last one. Big smile. And thumbs up. All right. Let's go say thank you.
Thank you, everyone. You guys are a fantastic group. I appreciate the opportunity to come into your class and share this with you. You're welcome. Bye, everyone.
Thank you.
You're welcome. All right. So, Lobos, Ranger Daniel, and the Pacific Ocean say goodbye, everyone.
Bye, Daniel.
Bye, everyone.
Bye, Daniel.
Bye.